Start plan. The measure would fund some government departments through January 19th, others through February 2nd. The White House says the president will sign the bill if the Senate passes it. Now, not included in that plan is funding for Ukraine as that country continues to wage war against Russia. Joining us to discuss is our Russia expert, friend of the stream, and professor of political science at DePaul, Dr. Dick Farkas. Dr. Farkas, thank you for your time.
Good to see you, Brad.
So Congress just passed that stopgap measure to avoid a shutdown. Those measures do not include funding for Ukraine. If no new money is coming from us, and Ukraine's war effort is so dependent on foreign aid, one has to think, how happy do you think Vladimir Putin is about our current domestic dysfunction, some would say, and a new unwillingness to send more money? How could this be perceived through the Russia lens? Is this a green light to go at it again?
No, I don't think so, because as you look through his lenses, the situation's even worse. Now, it's clear that the Ukrainians, I think, are going to make some adjustments in terms of their projecting how regular our supplies of weapons are going to be and how reliable over time. But in Russia, the situation is actually much more dramatic. Putin's had to impose new taxes, both on corporations and individuals, for purposes of bolstering his ability to continue to produce arms, and the attrition with which his army is experiencing, both in terms of people and equipment, is so vastly out of proportion with the Ukrainians that he's got to be concerned.
Okay.
He's got to be concerned that he can't sustain the effort.
Yeah. So Ukraine may not be getting money, but Russia apparently is doing worse off. Interesting there. Months ago, Ukraine launched a massive counteroffensive. We had heard some headlines about that in the beginning. Now, Ukraine's top general says the war is at a stalemate. He says there will most likely be a deep and beautiful breakthrough, or rather no deep and beautiful breakthrough. Is it safe to say the counteroffensive failed, or where do we stand on the ground?
Yeah, not quite, actually. I think the word stalemate is particularly unfortunate, and I've got to believe that's a translation problem of somebody's sort. But the truth of the matter is that what's happened is that the Ukrainian military has reconsidered the proposition. You remember that the Russians reinforced hundreds of miles of defensive line between themselves and the Ukrainian army. The skirmishes continue there, and the casualties that the Russians are taking are vastly out of proportion with the casualties that are being taken altogether, unfortunately, of course, by the Ukrainians. But I think what's happening is that in light of these developments, the Ukrainians have discovered that there's a need for a shift in their tactics. And they're not thinking now about a massive breakthrough along that line, because, of course, in military terms, it means that unless they could break through across the entire breadth of the line, they could end up surrounded and in pockets, having penetrated the line. Instead, what I think you're going to see very clearly, and I think very intelligently on the part of the Ukrainian military, is that they've discovered that with the Navy's withdrawal from Sevastopol, with the Russian Navy's withdrawal from Crimea, that means that both the Russian interest in Crimea and their capacity to defend Crimea is vastly less.
Wow.
So as a consequence, what you will notice if you look very carefully is that they've started to penetrate in the Kherson region, which gives them access to Crimea. What I'm simply saying is, I think what's happening is they've changed their tactics. They're now targeting Crimea as a doable, achievable territorial gain that they can make.
Okay. Do I have time for one more quick question, or no? No, that is it. We had a couple more questions for you about opposition. Of course, the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich still behind bars there. Of course, the mercenary leader of the Wagner Group getting his plane blown up. Now Navalny, an opposition leader, his lawyers being arrested. Kind of want to talk to you more about that, but we're out of time, Dr. Farkas. We will save that for next time. Your insight is critical, though, as I have a better understanding now of what's going on in Ukraine than I have in some time. So, professor of political science, friend of the stream, Russia expert, Dr. Dick Farkas from DePaul. Thank you, sir. We'll be back in 2 minutes.